Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we've got a top 16 breakdown for my first EB02 event for the EB02 meta of the One Piece card game. This is over 200 players. It was a super sweet event, and I really appreciate everyone who made this a success, all of the players, everyone who is watching at home, and also our judge staff of CJ, Risu, Hudson, Human, and also my co-commentator Yonas for just being available for this, super long event. It was over 10 hours long, but I had a really good time. I'm really happy it all worked out, and I had a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching it too. So if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. We're going to be making a lot of content, especially for EB02, with it just releasing now here for North America. If you guys want any links to deck lists, you can find it linked on my website, Eggman Events, which is also in the description. And again, we also did live stream this, so you can find a link to that in the description or on this page as well. But breaking on into it, for this top 16, we did have 4 green-purple Luffys, 2 Luccis, 2 Zoros, and then singles of Lim, Bonney, Enel, purple Luffy, the black smoker instead of the red and green smoker, the Newgate, as well as Oden. So a good amount of variety, right? This is kind of like a super duper locals too, right? I mean, we did have over 200 players, so a lot of people are at this event, right? You don't just stroll into a top 16 with an event this size. But I also will say that, this was a lot of variety and, maybe a sneak peek of like a lot of leaders that are viable in this meta. And I'm curious to see how this is going to compare and contrast to our first large event with EB02 at like a regional or a Treasure Cup level too. So we did have 7 rounds of Swiss best of 1 into a top 16 cut best of 3, which we also did play out. And that's what the top 16 is based off of, this top 16 from a, end of Swiss kind of thing. So also, we do have the leader breakdown. We did have 38 Luffy, 26 Rob Lucci, 21 Shanks, 15 of the red and green smoker, 12 of the purple Luffy, and then 10 Bonney, 9 Teach, 7 Lim, 7 Zoro, 6 Usopp, 5 Enel, and 48 others as well. So still a good amount of variety. We did have a lot of leaders that were pretty present here. The purple green Luffy was obviously the most popular. There's a deck I know a lot of people wanted to test. This also, we did have proxies legal for this event too. So if there's anyone who just wanted to play the deck, they did have a lower ease of access for this one, since it was like the first month before the first week of the release. I usually let proxies just because I know obtaining them, even with buying them, can be a little bit tricky with just such a quick turnaround. So that's kind of my thoughts for this one. I do think that this will be probably this slice will get maybe a little bit larger. I do think like red, such as Zoro and also Newgate, did get a lot of success just because they're kind of known aggressive decks in a format where people are just kind of figuring out what decks are optimal and what plays are optimal. So I think aggressive decks will always kind of take advantage of those kind of situations, but we'll kind of talk about that when we go over the deck list as well. So again, if you guys want to see any of this yourself, you can find it on my website for this event and many others in the OP10 format, and we'll continue to update it with EB02 as well. But we'll go over the top placing leaders for each one of these leaders. We had 11 different ones, so it's going to be a little bit lengthier. And let's start off with our first place list, which is Daniel's version of Bonney, which was able to get a first place finish. So I do know that EB02 was a new set, and Bonney technically did get a support card, which we will see in this top 16, but maybe not in the place that you'd think about it. But Bonney, I think, is a really consistent deck still for what this format's looking like, right? It does have a mildly good matchup into the green and purple Luffy. I do think that's something that helps it be a little bit present for what this format's like. It's able to be this very defensive. Spoilers, the finals was Bonney versus Newgate, and Bonney is so good at just denying Newgate really any value or any of the kind of forward momentum that's really looking for, right? Being able to have just the leader effect, being able to kind of get out of an additional attack every turn for just 1 Dawn is very strong. The fact that 10-drop Dofi just kind of stuns Newgate and has them, have to go another turn, which kind of slows them down. We also just have the strong top end for this deck of having 3 copies of Shanks, 3 copies of Usopp's Captain Kid, and 4 copies of Hody. I think these are pretty standard cards for Bonney right now. Kid specifically being able to kind of wall out any versions of the purple and green Luffy, especially if they're not playing Gamma Knife, or like the 6-cost Brook can be very strong, so I think that's impactful. We do have our good 5-drops of Carrot, Cavendish, and the 5-drop Smoker. I did ask Daniel if he thought this card was good. He's like, yeah, this card saved me a lot of spots in this game this weekend. Would not want to drop it any lower than 3, and if you want to try to fit in some other like kind of tech choices, like we talked about it too, like Electrical Luna has been getting a lot of success as green purple Luffy for if nothing else, just like the mirror match breaker. So I think that's a card that if you find room for, you could find putting it in this deck too. But he did say, yeah, the space for this deck is so tight, there's not really a lot of room for playing cards, and I do understand like why that can be the case too. So honestly, I think Bonney's going to be doing really well in the next couple weeks, and congratulations to Daniel for their first first place with Bonney. And then next up, you've got JCM with their version of Newgate. And honestly, JCM's been on quite the tear in the last 2 weeks, right? I think in tournaments with a Treasure Cup, a regional, as well as this event, I think he's like 23-4 or something ridiculous in a tournament setting over the last 2 weeks. So I think he's still just doing really good with Newgate. I do think Newgate has a very aggressive matchup that can be very helpful for specifically the green and purple Luffy. I think that's something that this deck can just get a foothold with because of that advantage of being maybe a little bit too fast and aggressive for a deck like that. So I know that he's been working on this deck for quite a bit and kind of changing up the sequencing and like the pieces for it, right? These 5-drop EZO has been very strong for this deck. I think being able to just kind of establish a card. You are still attacking 7k as Newgate because you put the Dawn underneath it, so that can be difficult for most decks to get like a clean 2k 1k to get out of it sometimes. Also, the defensive properties of this card is insane. Being able to just make any card in your hand essentially a 2k with how it works is really, really helpful. And I do think that kind of helps extend the game for you. So we do see like the Ace being like our top end rusher. We do also have the Goldie Roger, which can win you some games. Specifically, if your opponent's kind of blockered up, you're always going to be at 0 life at the end of the game. So that can really help you if you have a white board. Kick Course, the Radical Beam, and then also the Mole Gun, being able to use this to help you get some removal, right? 7Ks are just really great bodies, right? The fact that if you're kind of afraid about the matchup for the green and purple Luffy, you can just use this card and it just gets rid of a purple Sanji and Pudding, so that can be really helpful too. So I think he's been playing this deck a lot. I think he makes it look easy. There's a lot of kind of decision making on how it works, and congratulations to Jonathan for getting their second place finish here with Newgate. Next up, we've got green and purple Luffy. We got the deck here, and we do have 4 different builds that we can look at. We're just going to look at Alejandro's for this video, and generally speaking, and I've felt like I've said this before too, this deck is mostly, you have your important cards, right? I think the key cards for this deck are Sanji Pudding, as well as the Monkey.D.Luffy, the Secret Rare. Very important. I think you play it at like 3 copies ideally, right? I think 4 is a little bit too much, and if you don't, if you can't afford this card, I think you can run it at 2 if you only have the 2 copies, but kind of the way that I see that is that's where the most important cards. The rest of the deck is kind of just finding ways to support and find it, right? We have searches with Nami, we have Zoro Juro, we have the when you're at sea you fight pirates, right? We have the draw off the Merry Go. Merry Go also being able to protect your Sanji Pudding, right? All that kind of makes sense to make kind of like a concise way to help you just get all the pieces you need and just kind of make this really obnoxious board that's going to start swinging 7Ks very obnoxiously. So I think that's really helpful. We generally have room for people to have their own tech choices and what they want for what this deck looks like. So for me, I do see like the Usopp. I see people run this just because sometimes you want to put another body on 3. So it's usually it looks like it's probably going to be Frankie, but we could also use the Usopp here just to have like some mild value into late game. Luffy Taro, I think, is a decision point for deck building. I don't think you have to run this card, but it can be very strong still, specifically against something like Rob Lucci, where being able to establish 2 bodies makes it very difficult for them to kind of interact as much, and this can kind of stay on board, especially like in a post-Moria meta. And then we also do have the Demonic Aura 9 Sword Style Ostra Demon 9 Flash for this deck, which is a Supernova Straw Hat card, so it is searchable off of our green Straw Hat searchers, right? This kind of is just like a way to be able to turn your 1-drops into power. Anything else. So what you can do is, so you can have this 1-drop Nami out, right? And then you can use Merry Go to make it a 3 cost, and then you can use this effect to rest it, and then you can rest a 5 or more and give like the boost. So sometimes you also just need to be able to sync Dawn before you have to use your leader effect to kind of get a restand. So I do know like people are using like the other Gum card, the new one we got from EB02 to be able to boost up something for 6,000. It only boosts characters, but that being able to help you out, I think is strong, just to be able to use your Dawn so you can get the refresh and get the reusage afterwards as well. So I don't have much more to say about this deck. We're going to see it very often. I think these builds are going to look a little bit different, though. You can check out the other builds that got in the top 16, and congratulations to Alejandro for their top 4. And then to round out the top 4, we've got Zoro, and this is the tried and true build, right? This is a super strong build for how it works. We did see a top 16 with Zoro against Smoker, and it just brought back a lot of memories for how this deck works, and and just because, you know, these leaders are very old, right? This is technically like the first leader printed in a regular set, right? It's an OP01001 is its number. So, you know, we've seen a lot of the animal package from Zoro, I think, be very popular as well. But if we're a little bit worried about like how board removal kind of works, and we just want to be like very low to the ground and very aggressive, this deck still just does a great job at doing that, right? Our newest cards are, one, technically Dragon, even though this card's approaching a year old, but also the Mole Pistol. I really think that this card is strong enough to really carry yourself, and specifically just the the purple-green, I don't know why I'm saying red-green all the time, purple-green Luffy matchup, just because this can interact and remove a Sanji Pudding, specifically because you can have some kind of effects where like you can play 2-drop Sanji if they don't remove it. You can take your life to make this a 7k, and then you're able to use the Mole Pistol, right? Like you have a lot of ways to sneak into a 6k and also use the Mole Pistol in the same turn, so I think that's helpful. But you know, very, very reminiscent seeing this deck, right? This is a deck that's like the core of this has been kind of a viable deck since set 2, essentially, since Curly to Dawn, so it was printed as a card, and then Buggy being printed in OP3. All these cards are just really obnoxious. They have a lot of synergy with each other, and if your opponent is playing, you know, or is trying a new deck, or don't know their lines, or like have a very constructed build, it means that Zoro can really punish a lot of those situations. So I think like these day one events, week one events, Zoro is going to be very popular and do very well. So here's the build here. Congratulations to Ariyan for their finish with Zoro there. The next up, we've got our top 8, and so we've got Usopp, so we've got Johan's version of the deck, and this hasn't really changed from what we've been seeing for how this deck works. I do think that it can be very obnoxious and very difficult for this deck to kind of lose. Sometimes we play a lot of blockers, right? We play 4 Adeo, 4 copies of Bart, and 3 copies of the Frankie. Frankie is a blocker that plays another blocker, sometimes 2 or another 1-drop. So the fact that this kind of says on KO draw 2 is pretty impactful for this deck as well. We are also playing the Orlumbus, which I think is a really interesting add for this deck because we do play a lot of 1-drops out on our board, right? This does kind of just let us, you know, pop a 1-drop that we don't need anymore, right? Be able to get the -4 before that happens, and then we do get some great synergies into, I don't know, removing something with Zoro or using it with Kyros, right? It's unfortunately an activate main, so you can't use like Rebecca, Orlumbus, Kyros, and get the reduction with the Kyros at the same time, but it is still, I think, impactful enough to get that cost reduction in the first place and get some good interactions. So it's you know, a set for 4 card, right? It's from the original Rebecca, but I think this deck is really, really good still, right? And I have to double check on how it does against green purple, right? I would assume it kind of does kind of well, being able to interact with 5 costs a lot of the time, right, with this Kyros, and if not, it's very easy to play like a 1-legged toy soldier out early or a Lumbus and being able to just get the removal later. And even if not, right, the fact that we can attack into cards with a 7/9 the turn it's played does mean we get like a lot of tough interactions for it. So we are missing the 7-drop Luffy from this, not being able to play that. I do think that, I mean, we didn't really talk about it, but you know, no Teaches and no Shanks in the top cut, I think, is really remarkable, right? Those decks are just 2 of the better ones in this format as it was, and now they're just kind of not as present, at least for this event. So we'll see if that's going to make a difference for, you know, that matchup for Usopp, but I do think this deck is still very viable in this meta, and congratulations to Johan for their finish there. The next up, we've got Rob Lucci, and this is the build here from Abraham, and I've been really liking, you know, testing some Rob Lucci in this format, right? It's kind of like the leader just never goes away, right? Like, as long as it's still around, I think people will play it, right? The when attacking effect, I think, is just a little bit overtuned, I think, at this point, right? The fact that, you know, this deck lost like 3+ main deck cards and it's still very viable in its own way, I think just kind of shows how strong this is, right? Putting cards into your trash and being able to give something a -1 cost without any investment of Dawn or cards just means like this is just like a lot of value that this gets just for, you know, simply attacking into something. So we do have some like adjustments, I think, into this meta, right? I think Kuzan on 4 is just Kuzan or Laboon on 4 just means that like any green purple Luffy player just has to be like, well, even with Mary Go, right, I am probably losing the Sanji Pudding, right? Being able to just kind of put them in the spot where, like, I hope I have Zoro to remove this and interact with Kuzan, because otherwise I just simply cannot survive. I just lose this, which feels really bad. So I do think that's something that's impactful for that matchup. We do have our top end, right, of Jack. I haven't seen a lot of this Sabo, to be honest, to be played, right? The fact that it gets rid of 2 cards for a 5 and 3 does, I think, help out a lot. It is also a Revolution Army card too, so it's not a Dressrosa card though. I really am kind of upset this is not a Dressrosa card. This is one of the cards where I'm like, man, they could have given it the Dressrosa tag. But that aside, being able to use this card to get like a double clear is fantastic, even without a Ice Age, right? The fact that if we have like Kouzuki and Laboon set up, this does let you just go like that very good 2-for-1, specifically in something like green purple Luffy. If they don't have like the Merry-Go, like this deck can super punish that deck a lot of the time. So I don't have much more to say. I think this deck is going to be kind of on the rise in this meta, even without Ice Age, even without Moria. The removal that this deck has is kind of still unparalleled, and it's going to be very good because of it. So here's the build here. Congratulations to Abraham for their finish with Lucci. The next up, we've got Enel. So this is our last of the top 8 Sage's version of the Enel here, and this is definitely a deck that I know a lot of people have gotten eyes on, right? Specifically, we do have the new 10-drop Enel, which people probably already have their opinions on if they love or hate this card. I know a lot of people are on the hate card, but maybe that's they're just the loudest people in my comment section, right? But this is such a great end game tool that honestly, like, generically, Enel did have like a lot of good late game cards, right? We've had the 8-drop Katakuri, we have the Useless Kid now, we have the Yamato, but like, and the Ace too, but we never really had something in archetype, right? A card that says like, this is actually like the top end for Enel. We had like the 7-cost Enel, but that didn't really have like the heal kind of game plan, and this one definitely does. So being able to use this card to be able to pressure stuff, the fact that it's just difficult to remove unless you're playing against something with Red Rock, which honestly I don't think Doflamingo's that present as anymore, so that does mean you're a little bit safer to play this. You're very good against aggressive decks because they just kind of run out of steam before they're able to kind of clear the game. I do think green purple Luffy is about even-ish, but probably leaning into green purple Luffy side, just because the secret rare being able to be a 7k attack that can attack twice means that the only way you can really interact with that card is if you get the beige or the you're the ones you disappear as like your last life. Otherwise, you don't really have any like good triggers to help you. But I have been seeing a lot more people playing more blockers. Specifically, I think this Brûlé blocker has been extra obnoxious in this meta right now. People are just having to respect like a blocker being able to come out of life. Our new Sanji blocker is also really good. The fact that this almost just always says draw 2 and trash 1 on play, just because you're always going to be at 2 or less life, is really helpful. And again, like, this is just a just bundle of just generically good yellow cards. I think Enel just really lets you facilitate that with his leader effect. And if your opponent just can't do 3 attacks in 1 turn, you just can't lose, right? Which always just feels very good. So I don't have much more to say. Here's the build here. Congratulations to Sage for their finish with Enel. All right, and we've got 4 more leaders into our top 16, and we're going to start off with Bogdan's version of Lim. He did finish first place in Swiss with this deck, and unfortunately got paired up with Bonney, I think, in round 1 of top 16. So I think if you were playing against most other decks in this format, I think Lim had a good chance going first twice. But this one was a bit of a trickier matchup, I think, for the deck in general. But generally speaking, I think Lim is still just as strong. It's a very good additionally green and purple leader in this format. I think a lot of people are kind of moving towards the electrical Luna towards this deck too. This card just being additionally just as good for this deck, right? The fact that we're able to use this to just stun a wider board, get us like another turn when maybe our opponent's not expecting that, can be very, very strong. We just have so many good cards to play out. I still see builds with like the 1-drop event searcher, and I've been working on some kind of crazy builds with the Lim as well, but I've been really, really happy with how this deck's been looking, how it's been playing, and I think it's still very viable for this deck, or for this meta in general. So we do have like the 1 tech of like the 9-cost Shanks, because the removal from this still is pretty unparalleled, right? And if we're able to have it on the board, it kind of stays on board for the rest of the game. But I like this deck. I like it a lot, and I think it's still great for this. It does also get reverse hit by electrical Luna, so we do have to be careful about that too. But basically, kind of how this says is right, will not become active during your opponent's next refresh phase. And so since we have Mihawk, we can just play it to give something active that maybe our opponent wasn't expecting. So we're such a weird deck because we have so many ways to refresh our characters outside of the refresh phase, and we get a lot of advantage. So even if we do get like rested, like our opponent doesn't stun us that much, which I think is fun. So I don't have much more to say. I think this deck is very viable still. Congratulations to Bogdan for the top 16 finish and going 7-0 in Swiss as well. Next up, we got Smoker. And so this is Richard's version of the deck here. And I think a lot of people were expecting a Smoker to get in the top 16. And based on people playing it, a lot of people were expecting the red and green Smoker, but none of them were able to get into it. And it is instead the new OPO, or not the older OPO2 Smoker with some new support, such as this new Sengoku. So generally speaking, I think when this came out in Japan in EB02, this card was a little bit underrated, mostly because they still had Gecko Moria, right? Like, why would you play this card with the idea that Gecko Moria for one more Dawn lets you just do almost everything better, right? That's kind of the idea. So I don't think this card was super used on release, but now that Moria is gone, I think a lot of people are kind of re-looking at this card and what it can do, and it's really, really strong in a lot of ways. So being able to use this to be a blocker, being able to get a 4-drop from your trash, generally speaking, I think Kouzuki is one of the better ones, but you also can get Borsalino as well. The fact that also, this doesn't happen as often, but this is a 7 cost, so that means that Rebecca does get a 3 to 7 from your trash to your hand, so you can use Rebecca to get it from your trash, so you reuse it on another turn, which I think is really great for that additional value you can get from it. Smoker also has like some great removal with Tashigi. I do think this is like one of the better removal cards in this game right now still, and it works the best with Smoker as is, so that is very, very helpful. We do have only 2 copies of Sengoku and 3 copies of Brand New, which I do think like that may be a little bit low. I think that Sengoku is kind of needed just to kind of set up trash for some later games, especially since we are playing a couple copies of Tempest Kick, and our leader doesn't naturally trash cards from deck, so getting to 10 can be a little bit tough. But this is a very personal list, right? We have a lot of interest, specific ratios, right, for cards. I do think that Smoker has a real good chance to take advantage of Sengoku, since we do just want to play Kuz on stuff. Like our Navy package is already really, really good, and I do like what this deck can look like. So generally speaking, I'm really looking forward to people kind of re-exploring different ways to play like Navy builds across all the different leaders that we have right now. And I think there's a lot of different builds that just kind of make sense as well. So not much more to say for here, but congratulations to Richard for their finish with Smoker. Next up, we've got Carlos's version of Purple Luffy, and I don't want to like oversimplify it, but I think this deck, as long as Gum Gum Giant is in the game, I don't think the deck can not be relevant in one way or the other, right? It's just been able to be very present in this meta, right? I think Luffy Taro from the starter decks that we got during OPO8 really, really helped this deck to get just like another package to be able to use. But generically speaking, this is just like a generically good leader, right? Being able to ramp unconditionally off your leader effect after turn 1 is just fantastic, and just being able to get to our late game whenever there are just like good purple late game cards that are relevant in this meta. This deck I think is just going to be relevant in its own way too. So we do have some small adjustments. We are playing Miss Doublefinger instead of Bon Clay, which I'm not sure if that if that was just like an availability issue or not, but I do think this card is still good, and there are some times where this comes out of life, which is good. Also, late game, obviously 2K is better than 1K. You are playing, I think, above average a number of blockers, including the Frankie instead of the Onami. I do like Frankie like in the late game just because, the Dawn -2 is a little bit expensive at times, but being able to use this card to say, oh, well, I'm going to have a blocker, and then also if they don't block with it, I get to attack with it is really good. You do also have to trash the card before drawing 2, so that is kind of tough. We are also playing like the Queen for like another blocker. Tony Chopper is like another blocker we can play off of our Luffy Taro, and then just kind of the top end that we're kind of used to as well. So I don't know. We've seen like a lot of kind of different builds of Purple Luffy. The kind of core engine's really the same a lot of the time, and I don't think this deck is really going anywhere anytime soon, even though there's a new Purple Luffy on the block once again. But here's the build here from Carlos. Congratulations for their finish with Luffy. And then finishing off, we do have Oden. So this is Phillip's version of the deck here. And we do want to talk about, the new card we got for it, right? The Yamato. This card, it really helps you get a lot of advantage for Oden in general. Activate main once per turn if your leader is Land of Wano type or Ace. Give up to 1 Rested Dawn to your leader. And then this game's rushed during this turn. So just being able to like give you like a 6K leader on top of being like a 7K rush is really good. Like this deck is, I've seen a lot of people make comparisons about this. This is really kind of a different way to play like a deck like Green Purple Luffy, right? Where you're a 6K leader that makes a lot of 5/7s. So that is kind of still like a strong effect, but that also means that a lot of people are targeting the cards that this deck is playing because it just happens to be the same kind of stat line that Green Purple Luffy is playing. So that does make it a little tough, and means that you are kind of targeted in this meta maybe more than in the same way that Green Purple Luffy Luffy is. We do have a bit of more of a top end though than I'm used to in this deck too. We do have a Bonney. So I did say, like, forever ago that this card we're going to talk about, right? So on play, up to one of your opponent's characters will not become active in your opponent's next 3 effects phase, and then one of your Dawn is active at the end of the turn. So this does let you just be like mildly more defensive. We are playing Rad Beam and Paradise Waterfall, so just being able to make a 7-drop 7k that also stuns one of your opponent's characters can be really helpful in kind of these late game scenarios. We also do have like the Dragon is just like a really good rush card that we can play on curve on 8 and give Dawn to our leader, so we get our leader effect. And then we also have Newgate, which if we're able to have like the 10 Dawn play, this does mean like we are able to be a 7k leader with a combination of Oden's effect, an 8k leader with Oden's effect and Newgate's effect, which is very tough for a lot of decks to kind of overcome. Even if we're just at 9 Dawn, if we have our 6-drop Yamato, the activate main is once per turn. So, and it's not the turn that you have to play it. So you give yourself rush technically, not that it matters anymore, but being able to get that extra Dawn can be really helpful too. So we also the 2k Yamato, sometimes this is just the best one to play. Same kind of thing, activate main once per turn, you just give the rest of Dawn to your leader or one of your characters, which just helps you get Dawn on to your Oden. And so yeah, generally speaking, this deck is all about making sure that you can have your 5 drops survive and 5 and 6 drops survive to be able to have your leader continue to be a 6k and be very aggressive as well. Sometimes that works out, sometimes I think that can be a little bit tough to do, but I really like this build. It's a lot different than what I've been doing on the top end of usually just kind of capping out with Hody Jones. So seeing Dragon, seeing Newgate, and the new Bonney being used to success, I think is really interesting as well. So here's the build here. Congratulations to Phillip for their finish in this event. But that's going to be it for me. Again, if you guys want any of the deck lists or look at any of this, you can find it on my website, Eggman Events. We're going to have a lot more data here as we get into the EB02 format, so make sure to check it out as we progress through it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what this turns out to be in this format too. So that's going to be it for us. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.
Damn it. Damn it.